to another episode of the Wine and Chisme podcast. And it is the first Wednesday of the month, which means we are focused on some of our amazing, wonderful Latine owned wine brands. And today I have Noel and Jackie from 1467 Cellars. How are you guys today?
Doing great. How about yourself?
I am. I have two glasses of wine in front of me. I'm going to be amazing.
Awesome. Well, we got to cheers to that.
Yes.
Yes. So, salud. Here's my
Cheers.
little penny sound effects. So the first wine I'm drinking, you guys were so gracious and sent me a bottle of your Pinot Noir and your Cab. Obviously, we're gonna go with the lighter one first. So I'm starting with your Pinot Noir.
Yes, we'll hold the bottle so we get a little visual
Yeah,
aid.
because if I hold it back, like with my background, it sometimes does not show up. Oh, this smells really good too, and it's really light.
It's very floral.
Mm. Oh my gosh. Okay, summer's coming up, and I tend to switch up during the summer, especially, here in California, it can get really hot and stuff. I'm in San Diego. I'm in San Diego, it doesn't get that hot, but it gets
Yeah,
hot enough for us. And so I tend to like go towards lighter wines. This is something I would totally drink throughout the summer.
totally.
This Pinot Noir. Yeah, it's not too heavy. I tend to, as I was saying right before we started recording, I'm a cab girl. I love my cabs, but I tend to drink a lot less in the warmer weather. Um, this is really good.
How do you enjoy?
Yeah, we wanted to make, like you said, we have our cab was what we originally started with, but we wanted to have another wine that was something more like approachable too, like in these situations where it gets warmer weather and maybe you don't want a big bold wine, you just want to have something a little bit more easy on your palate. So we're glad that you also think like that as a wine drinker.
You know what? I do, and I think it's so amazing because Pinot Noir, since they are tend to be a little bit lighter, can't they're one of those wines that are very versatile that will go with a lot of different things. But one thing, and we'll get into all of the things because I want to hear the story and I got to try the cab, all of the things. But I will say one of the things that I really love about a lot of Latino wine brands is I think instinctually they tend to like generally like larger brands don't tend to think of untraditional pairings, right? They don't tend to think of, oh, I can pair this with some enchiladas. I can pair this with ceviche. They tend to go with very pasta and chicken and steak. And one thing that I love about a lot of these wine brands is like it's almost instinctual that when these wines are made that they tend to also go very well with foods that come from our culture.
Totally. Yeah.
And that's like, yeah. So I'm like, I only poured myself a little bit, and like I told you, I have a birthday party to go to later. I'm definitely gonna have to take an Uber because I'm gonna have to have another glass of this before I go. But before we get into all the chisme, let me go ahead and read the bio. So the family came from a small ranch in the state of uh, I think I'm gonna butcher it. Tlaxcala.
Tlaxcala. So it's the
Okay.
smallest state in Mexico.
Okay.
It's near
You know what?
Puebla.
I've never heard of that state. So when I read it, I was like, and I should have. So yeah, that's like the one state I had never heard of.
A lot of people say that, so you're not alone.
Yeah.
Okay. I was like, oh my
Like
gosh, my
I get
bad,
that personally
Mexican.
all the time. They're like, "Where's your dad from?" Like,
Yeah,
Scala.
we have to,
yeah.
it's pretty much saying it's like by Puebla, it's like 2 hours away from Mexico City.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
I've been like to San Miguel de Allende, but it's like probably on the other side of it, right? Because that's a couple hours away. And settled in Napa Valley. It was their grandfather, Juan Roldan, that first came and saw great opportunity for himself and the family. The home he and Teresa, their grandma, purchased and have lived in since is where they named. I'm sorry. I'm gonna have to start over and just re-edit that.
Sorry.
No, that was
This is what happens sometimes.
Okay.
Okay, let me start over. Take two. The family came from a small ranch in the state of Taslaca and settled here in Napa Valley. It was their grandmother Juan Roldan that first came and saw great opportunity for himself and the family. The home he and Teresa, their grandmother, purchased and have lived in since they moved there is where the name 1467 Cellars comes from. It is their home address where their kids, grandkids, and now great grandkids are growing up in the house. They visit their grandparents as much as they can, but every holiday is spent in that house. It is the place that brings their family together. As there is a lot of their family in the wine industry working at other wineries, they thought it would be a great idea to put their brains together and start their own label. Everything about the wine label is done by someone within their family. Their winemaker, Eric Ayala, whom is their oldest male cousin. They are a small production and they produce 300 cases at the moment and currently have, oh my gosh, it's okay. This part I'm not going to edit out because guys, this happens, right? This is real.
Keep going.
And which is Pinot Noir, which I just had a taste of from the Calesa Vineyard, which is located at the Petaluma Gap. The vineyard is owned by the Renteria family. We love the Renterias.
Yeah.
And they source their Cabernet from Atlas Peak. So yes, we know the Renterias. They're friends of the Wine and Chisme podcast, so we love them. I'm still, like I said, I'm so excited now. What we were saying, and Noel, what you were saying, you messaged me making sure I knew that your parents are the owners. You guys are cousins, right? Cousins?
Correct.
Yes, correct.
Okay. And it's your parents that actually own the winery. And then you guys are now entering into this. Well, not just, but you guys are entering as the second gen of 1467.
Yeah, so we do use a winery up in Spring Mountain here in Napa as our custom crush facility. So Pride Mountain Vineyards, that is where we make our wine and use as a custom crush facility. So Eric Ayala, our cousin, and then his father, Ruben Ayala, are full-time employees there at Pride. And when, the owner, Steve Pride, found out that our family wanted to start this wine label, 1467, he said Pride was a perfect area as, they already work there full-time. They can oversee the wine while they're working and doing their normal job. So it was a great opportunity for us to start our custom crush there at Pride.
So I know you said that your family came from Tlaxcala. Tlaxcala. I want to like change
the K, like do like a
yes.
clap.
Yes,
like,
I don't know why you kind of keep doing this, but I'm gonna get it. What was the like when your grandfather first came? Like, what was the opportunity that he saw, and why Napa in particular?
So our grandfather came first when he was about 17 years old, and then he came during the Bracero program. So that was the main reason that he ended up coming over to the United States. So came at a very young age. My grandmother, Teresa, was back home in Tlaxcala with the kids. He was out here working. She was back home taking care of the family and whatnot. He would go back and forth, but just saw how there was a lot of opportunity here within the States. And, we're very fortunate enough that our family settled here in Napa because it's a place that people from all over the world come to visit, and we're very fortunate enough to live here. And now we have made a dream come true, which our dream was to be able to have our own wine label, which is now 1467.
We've heard that a lot on the podcast in regards to like grandparents or parents coming from the Bracero program, which I think afforded so many people the opportunity to see something, but it was also a very, very different time, and the way people were treated was definitely not the best, right? It was, people were definitely you like people were living in like a bunch of people in a house and a bunch of people, like it was just, is this something that your grandfather ever talked to you about his experience during that time? Is that something that you guys ever keep in mind as you're going now, like from generation to generation?
I haven't really spoken to him about those conditions. Like my memories are him just being, like a cowboy, and like the stories about him making friendships with other like farmers in the area. So I didn't really know too much in detail about kind of more like you're saying the struggles of those times. For me, it was more just focused on my grandpa. Like he's very friendly, and like he's always made really good relationships. And I see that like in my dad, and I see that in our family too, which that's kind of like my only perspective that I've ever like heard. But now I'm curious.
Yeah, I mean, he has, you know, he has told us stories, but he hasn't really gone too much into like the hardships of it. Thankfully, he says that, you know, he was able to find ways to make things work right. And yeah, he first started out in the fields, you know, doing like the vegetables and stuff. But then he is very into animals, especially horses. So he was able to, as Jackie said, you know, he's a very friendly person and was able to meet a lot of awesome people in his life, that he was able to get into that field where he was able to train horses, especially like race horses and stuff. And he would drive trailers for people that had those horses. He would take them wherever he needed to be at the moment. But his goal, as I've been told, it was to at one point see a family business. He will be turning 86. This is going to be released in June or July. Sorry. So he just turned 86. And his goal, you know, as I said, was to see a family business. And so it's awesome that, you know, he's still with us. He's pretty healthy. And you know what he says to keep him away from the doctor? He drinks at least a glass to 2 glasses of wine a day. And that's what keeps him away from the doctor.
Right. It preserves. See, wine preserves. It preserves us.
Exactly.
It makes your
Yeah.
skin glow.
That's
That's my secret.
that's right, girl. People don't ever. When I tell them I'm 46, they're like, "What?" And I'm like, "It's the wine. It preserves." You know.
Exactly.
When you say horses, honestly, what comes to mind is the Miriam and Juan from Ondrama Sellers,
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
they're very much into all of that, but they're much in,
Totally.
like that. So, like when you said that, I was like, "Oh wow, that's really interesting too," because that, you know, they're friends of the podcast as well. We love them. We love Ondrama Sellers. I have a lot of wine from them here as well.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, he's very into farming. Like we grew up living our, you know, spending our days after school and on our weekends on his ranch. That he at the back then, you know, at one point he had over 20 horses, over 200 chickens, a bunch of pigs, cows, the whole thing. And so we were
a
very
true
fortunate.
ranch.
Yeah, true ranch. So we were very fortunate to be able to grow up and have that experience ourselves.
And he also worked like at the food bank. Like he still volunteers, or I don't know if he still does that, but for a while. So we would actually like help him at the food bank because it was really nearby our grandparents' home. So and whatever food like it didn't work, you know, he'd like take it to the ranch. So it was all very like ingrained, like his world, and having us be a part of it and just like participate. I think we've always been really fortunate to be able to do that with, you know, my cousins, that we all range within like a decade of each other. So it's kind of like fun that we got to grow up in that experience too.
I didn't know. I think that's really awesome. It sounds like he's a true patriarch of the family, like
Oh,
really making
100%.
sure that
Yes.
all of those things are preserved. How do
Yeah.
you think that trickled down to your parents in regards to, because obviously he envisioned a family business way back when. So something has to trickle down to your parents to be able to start that. And then obviously for you guys to continue in that step, in that way.
Well, you know what really made this happen is 1467, our grandparents' home. I would say our family is very family oriented. You know, we spend holidays together, almost every holiday, if not. And you know, we have a cousin group chat where we'll text like, let's go hang out with our grandparents and do a barbecue, or let's just go and hang out and spend time with them. Um, so we spend a lot of time together as a family, and there's a lot of us, as you know, aunts, uncles, and cousins within the wine industry, that we felt that it was time for us to put everyone's brain together to where we can, you know, start our own wine label. It's something that we all love. It's something that we drink on the daily. So it was just fitting for us to be able to have our own label.
So I've come across, because, you know, putting together the directory, right? The first directory of Latino wine brands based in the US. And then you know, a couple years ago, the first year maybe, or the second year of that I was around, I created a tamales and wine guide. And then the following year we did a pozole and wine guide. So we're gonna do another one. I'll let you guys know, right? So
Yeah.
but you know, there's I feel like sometimes there's pushback in regards to Latinos in wine. People are like, it's so bougie, it's so this, it's so that. And I'm like, but it doesn't have to be. Like it doesn't have to be. I can understand why people perceive that and why, but when you grow up in the area, obviously you have a very different take, right? When you're growing up around that. Is that something that you guys that ever entered your minds, or has it just kind of been so ingrained in you from the beginning? And do you ever hear that? Do you ever get any pushback in regards to people thinking it's too bougie for our community?
I think for me, especially, having older family members that have been within the wine industry, wine has always been around. So it was like a norm. But yeah, I would totally agree with you. Within our community, there are people that think it's like the bougie thing. And it's like, I'm not going to drink that. I shouldn't be drinking that. But it's you end up falling in love with it. And what's even more special about wine is which not everyone knows, is all the hands that it takes to make this single glass of wine or the bottle of wine. It's all hands, from our people, which makes
Yeah.
it more special. And that's what makes wine such an art. It's so many hands that make this beautiful, bottle of wine.
And I'll say with my background, so I'm in marketing in the wine industry. So I think historically, you would see wine being advertised to people that didn't really look like us, right? And now you're seeing more diversity in general. Like the wine industry is very like old school when it comes to adapting with the times, if you will. Like I will admit that. So I think it's positive to see like, that you have a podcast and that we're talking about wine and that people in our community see that it, like their relatives are drinking it. I've noticed I have a relative who didn't grow up in Napa. She grew up in LA, and like since we've been talking about it, she's become more interested in it herself. But in her community, they don't really drink wine like we do in Napa Valley, right? So I would say like I've witnessed that, and I think it's so awesome to like just see it change the more that people like us show up into these underrepresented places.
So I want to share something with you. When I first started the podcast, I was going to like Trader Joe's and just picking up wine and sharing, blah, blah, blah. And then I was like, I know there has to be Latino owned wines. Like, I know there has to be. And so I started researching, and I started seeing like the same, I would see articles, but it was like the same 10 to 20 wineries, like brands in every single article.
Yeah.
And I was like, there has to be more than this. So then I found MAVA, the Mexican American Vintners Association. If you've listened to the podcast, I've talked about MAVA before. So then I reached out to the then president, Guillermo, and I ended up taking a road trip with my dog, and we went up and we spent a couple days in Napa, and I met with Ondrama Sellers, Herencia, and Llamas Family Wines. Like they took me out to dinner, yes. And I started having these amazing, they brought the wine, and I was like, oh my gosh, I felt so spoiled for sure. I felt so spoiled. But when I started talking to my friends about, did you guys know that there's Latino owned wineries? Did you know that there are Latino owned wine brands? Albeit it was a small sample size, but like 99% were like, what? I had no idea. Wait, what? Wait, why am I spending my money over here? I need to be spending it over here. And I think that, like, when you're saying like the marketing, and most of the wineries, right? Most Latino owned wineries are micro wineries as well, such as yourself. You don't have super, super large amounts of cases that you guys are doing. But I also think that's what makes it so special. Because I feel like there's like you get a chance to play around a little bit more. You get a chance to really see what kind of hits your soul. Because to me, and let me know if you guys feel the same way. And I feel like I've grown in this as well, because I've liked wine for a very long time. But I've had a whole new appreciation for wine since I started the podcast over the last 4+ years. And I just feel like you can feel that you can taste the differences in the wines. But when I taste from these winemakers such as you guys, and when I Like I feel like I can also taste the love that goes into it versus picking up a super mass produced wine. Some people might think that I'm crazy for saying that, but I really do feel like that.
I feel like it makes us feel proud. Like I think we all want each other to succeed because like when one of us succeeds, it opens a door for, someone else to kind of so I feel the same way like when I do enjoy like a Latin owned wine versus, a traditional Napa Valley one that's like has all the accolades. There is like a difference, And so I would say like I would agree with you. There's some kind of like support that goes into it and yeah and then you taste it in the quality it's like a different experience.
It
Yeah.
is. Noel, do you feel the same way?
Totally, 100%. It's like you can definitely taste the care and the love that goes into making wine.
Yeah,
Yes.
you
So
appreciate
Jack, oh, I'm sorry, Jackie, what was like after as your parents were growing up, what was their role? Like, how did they decide to get into wine? Obviously, your grandfather had a huge influence. What was their kind of stepping stones into creating 1467?
Yeah. Well, my dad's worked out of a winery for the last 30 years. He's more on like the maintenance side of it. So he just how I explain it is he fixes everything on the property. But through those years, he's really developed his palate and he has a great taste. So he's always appreciated great wine and he sees all the behind the scenes of what it takes to produce wine. So I've always gotten that from him. But my mom's dad, so my grandpa on my mom's side, he actually was a vineyard manager at Schramsberg, which is like a sparkling wine label in Napa. And he created one of the first vineyards ever there and actually grew up on the property. So like wine is ingrained in both sides of my family, which
No
is pretty cool.
kidding.
Yeah, and we're actually like related to the Renterias as well. So it's like very special to me that I get to involve both sides of my family kind of in this label. So that's why I'm like extra happy to be here. And why it is like, a passion for me as well. I didn't start drinking wine until I was like 23 and actually appreciate it. It was Rombauer Chardonnay for me because it just tasted like butter and deliciousness. But yeah, through the last, 6 years or whatever, I have just grown to love it even more and just working in the industry as well. That's kind of like my journey into how we landed here. But it just always goes back to like those special moments growing up and visiting my grandparents on the property and just seeing like how they created a life with like not a lot of money and where they're at today. It just because of the valley, because of working in the vineyards. And so I think we're pretty fortunate. And so that's why I'll always appreciate like Napa Valley and my upbringing.
And Noel, what about you?
I would say for me, it would be my mother. She's been a lab tech for over 20 years. So, I mean, growing up, of course, I didn't know much about wine except it was something that adults would drink, right? But growing up, I would see like the long days as she would work for harvest and how tired and the stories she would say, like just the long days and how many tons they would process or do within a day. So, as I started growing up, I started gaining more knowledge, right? So, I would talk to her about this vintage versus that vintage or how the year's going. So that's kind of what started getting my interest into the wine industry and having a lot of, our aunts, uncles, and like my great uncle on my mom's side. So Jackie's grandpa was at Schramsberg. My great uncle was at Schramsberg for like what close to 30 years.
Yeah, it's great.
So my uncle Efren, so now there's a cave named after him for being there so long. So just, there's a lot of ties within the valley that has got our family to where we are today, which makes it extra special.
I want to go back to what you were saying about like basically when one rises, we all rise, right? Um, and that's something that I have seen so much in the last several years of how much everybody supports each other. You would think, and I'm so glad it's not like this. Maybe from the outside in, people would think, well, they're all trying to compete for this, like for the same market share in this and that, but there's room for everybody. And everybody knows how important it is for us to uplift our community. And if we don't do it from within, nobody's going to do it for us. Right. Um, who have been outside of your immediate family, who have kind of been your inspirations in regards to what you guys are doing with your winery?
Let's see.
Good question.
That is an amazing question.
In relation to to wine, is that where like
To wine, to business, to life. I mean, you know,
oh,
there's it all, I think it all ties in, right?
totally, totally, totally. Mm.
I mean, what has influenced me to, push and hopefully, build 1467 is the winery that I work at now. I work up at Arkenstone, which is on Howell Mountain. It's a family-owned label. The winemaker that's there has been there since day one. So just seeing the way that a family has been able to work together and build a beautiful property, create beautiful wines, and people from all over the world that are wanting this, this bottle, this label. And, it's that drive to hopefully one day people, are wanting to come from across the country or anywhere around the world to want to try 1467.
Yeah, I think it is more about like legacy, even though you said like outside of family, but for me, I think it is just to like be a part of it together. Um, because I have like a separate life outside of this in my own business that I'm pushing towards, but when it comes to this wine, I feel like it's what keeps us all together, just like another layer of it. So for me, that would be like such an achievement, to be a part of and really meaningful with the
Yeah,
people you love, you know?
yeah. No, families, I mean, especially in our community, right? Family is such a huge thing. But the fact that you guys have so many together, but the fact that I started laughing in my head when you said all of your cousins are in a group chat. There's no way me and my cousins could be in a group chat. There's way too many of us. Like my mom's the youngest of 10, and there's like just first cousins only on my mom's side. There's 50 of us.
Yeah, that'd be a
So we,
weird
yeah,
chat.
yeah, there would be no way
Yeah,
that we could. And plus, I don't want some of my cousins to have my number.
Right.
yeah. There's 13 of us, so it's doable.
Oh yeah,
Totally.
yeah. That's
Totally.
doable. That's between one uncle. I think one of my tios has 13 kids.
Nice.
So yeah, yeah, it gets real crazy. We're on the low end with three, me and my sisters, right? We're on the low end. Between two tios, I have 21 cousins.
That's a
Just
lot.
between two of my tios. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
crazy. So when you guys decided, when your family decided, like we're doing this, what was there a sense of fear? Because obviously your parents are the ones who started this. Do you think they went in just like no matter what, we're gonna do this? It's just was it just like a project for the family, or was it the intention to really grow out and what you guys are doing now?
That was a question early on that my uncle Enrique proposed, right? He's like, "Do you guys want to do this just for fun, like, or do we want to do this long term?" And we all decided like we're here for the long haul. So I'll kind of let Noel carry that conversation, but we have like exciting and new products that we're planning to release. And so yeah, we're in it for the long haul, but yeah, if you want to elaborate.
Yeah, so I mean, our family first started making wine at home. So it
Totally.
was wine just for the family. It was obviously never labeled, never sold. It was just for the family consumption. So it just turned into a family project. Um, and it got to the point where, for family parties, we would bring it out and people would be loving the wine and being like, are you guys ever going to make your own wine? Are you guys going to sell it? Or can I buy some type of thing? And it's like, it's for family consumption to enjoy at parties. And it got to the point where us as grandkids, we've gotten older where we understand business and responsibilities that our uncle told us, like, do you guys want to do this? It's not easy to live in Napa. We got to work to make it affordable and hopefully build something for ourselves, as there's a lot of people that are building something for themselves. Why can't we be part of that group? And so that's where we decided, let's make it a business and let's all work together so we can help 1467 grow. And, hopefully one day we have our tasting room, we can have our winery. But, first we're starting off with our Pinot and our Cab and just doing pop-up tastings when we can.
Well, you can pop down to San Diego anytime. I'll make sure. I'll
Yeah,
make sure we get you places.
Yeah,
down there.
we will.
um, so both of you guys have jobs outside of 1467. How, because obviously what you do with your jobs and what you do here, especially when you're starting a business, it takes a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of energy. How are you guys balancing that? Are you just completely wiped at the end of the day? Like, how are you like not pulling out your eyebrows and your hair by doing both things?
So everyone our whole family is involved with 1467 Cellars, right? Everyone has a full-time job. There's no one that's just full-time to 1467 Cellars. So we all do our full-time job. And then after work, or, when we find that we need to find the time, we work on 1467 Cellars. But what keeps us going is the motivation and that drive to make 1467 Cellars be bigger than what it is, and make it be a label that people, when they go to a restaurant or they go somewhere, they recognize that label, that wine, and they want it.
Also, the motivation when people try our wine and they like love it, like seeing your reaction and seeing people actually enjoy it, like that motivates me when I'm tired. And like you said, I'm like, I want to pull my hair out. I had a long day. Like just knowing that there are people that want to support and thoroughly enjoy something, just as much as we do. That's kind of what drives my motivation too, to like keep pushing our product and not give up, right? Because it can be really hard when you're starting something and like it comes in waves, like you land an account, then it's quiet. You land 3 accounts, quiet, that's what it's like creating a business. And so it's always remembering at the end of the day, like there's a place for everyone. And yeah, Rome wasn't built in a day.
So speaking of, has there ever been a moment where you okay, I'll get, it's kind of like a two-parter. Has there ever been a moment where you were just like, I give up, like I can't do this? And if whether you have or haven't, what has been the hardest part of building this business?
That happened for me recently, but I don't know. I mean, I was just transparent. I was like, you know what? Like right now, because I'm also creating another business, and I was like, I'm unable to be leading our social media this month. I need to focus because now my livelihood's on whatever, owning my own business. I no longer work a 9 to 5. And I was just upfront with communication. But fortunately, my cousins stepped in and now like, they took over, and it's just kind of nice to have those relationships and like understanding that, hey, temporarily I may not be like able to give my 100, but I will when I can, and knowing when to like, that's for me in my case recently. But it's nice to have that like transparency and be able to like express myself with my relatives and not feel like I'm like, you know swallowing myself in a hole. And I'm just like, it's nice to be able that there is help and that people will step in, and we all understand, like we're all working hard towards something. So that's been really nice. Noel's been pushing though. I'll tell you, this guy, whatever he's eating and drinking, you guys need to get the recipe because this guy is killing it on top of his
He's
job.
like, I'm taking my B12 shots.
I
I'm doing
love
this.
it.
No, it can get
Yeah.
exhausting because I mean, I go to restaurants and try to show them 1467 Cellars. But just knowing it's our family, it's what motivates me and drives me to want to keep doing it. It's like, I either get home at a reasonable time or I have, my day off or days off. I want to go push 1467 Cellars just so more people can get to know our wines and enjoy them, because that's what wine's for.
So are all of your cousins involved in it? Is like your whole family involved in some aspect?
So our whole family is involved, and that's what makes it great. We broke down into different departments. We have our production department, we have our finance department, we have our marketing, and we have our sales. So, Jackie, she was in charge of running social media with two other cousins, and she had to focus on her business, which was great. So the other two cousins fill in the time being. So we have support. It's not just relying on one person, which kind of takes some weight off your shoulders.
But it is unique that we all have like a finance department, and that those are like that's my sister and my cousin,
brother,
like
and another cousin.
who works in finance at a winery. So it's just cool because Noelle made a comment the other day that there's a lot of family-owned businesses, right, that like are run and operated, but we truly have like everyone. There's no one outside of our family that's working for 1467. We don't, besides like our winemaker who consults at Pride, but that's still he's the one who's leading it. Like there's no accountant or like a financial person that's like it truly is just all of us. So that's kind of unique, I think, too, and special.
So Jack, I'm asking you a question because it's okay here. You can brag about yourself. What's this other
Oh.
business you're building?
I was like, I'm here for the cheese man too. Like, when did the cheese man come in? Because I'm ready for it.
I'm trying to get it from you, girl.
Well, I have a social media content creation business. So that's why, like, for me, I'm constantly creating content. So that was my job at a winery, was to lead that. And I basically branched off to do it on my own. So I help small businesses, wineries in the area with creating content and helping them grow their businesses by like storytelling.
I mean,
And
that's the biggest part, right? Is telling stories to get people's attention.
well, especially in today's digital age, like we're all on our phones. We get a lot of our information through these apps, and it's important. As much as it's exhausting for some people to do, right? But I love it. Like I actually really enjoy it. So that's what I do. And I launched that during Thanksgiving last year. So it's still
Well, congratulations on that.
Thank you.
I'm sure you will be very, very successful in that. So right now you guys have your Pinot Noir, which I need to finish because I need to get to the cab. You know what?
I know. I'm like, when are we getting to the cab? But
Let's
also,
just get to the cab now. I gotta smell.
Okay, let me finish.
I know. I'm like, let me just get to the cab right now.
Actually, wait, we're not.
Oh, that smells so good. And you know what? It doesn't smell like super alcohol forward either. Sometimes you like get it and it's like,
Oh,
all up in your nose.
Yeah, our goal for 1467 to our cousin Eric was to make wines that people could drink now. It's not like that thing that's just gonna punch you in the face and it's like, okay, I got to sit on this for 10 years before I can start drinking it. We wanted people to be able to enjoy 1467 cellars right off the bat. And we feel like he did an amazing job with these two wines. So the cab that you have, which is the 2021, that is our first wine, our first vintage. And then the Pinot came along in 2022 with the cab as well. So the Pinot and the cab are what we focus on right now, but we do have a new SKU coming online here.
Like, you can't just tease. You got to spill that cheese, man. What's coming down the
pipeline? To watch till the end to find out.
Yeah, at the very end. I just finished I was like, let me take that last drink of the Pinot.
Yeah, no. So we felt that our goal is to grow, right? And so we do need a white wine. So for all you white wine lovers, we are going to be releasing a Sauvignon Blanc in August.
Exciting. So let me tell you, I am I'm not down with New Zealand Sauvignon Blancs because I don't like grapefruit and they're so grapefruit forward from New Zealand.
Yes.
But what I have found is Sauvignon Blancs out of California don't tend to be, they're still citrus forward.
Yeah.
They don't tend to be grapefruit forward. There was one that I tried out of Temecula and I didn't ask and I tasted it. I'm like, oh, this has grapefruit notes, doesn't it? I'm like, oh, and I was like I get, when you're something you really don't like that's instantly what you smell or what you taste.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, salud now with the cab.
Yes. Cheers. I'm pouring mine right now.
This is nice. That color is nice and deep without being like, so I mean, like I poured them out already because I had to go get new Corvin capsules because I didn't want to, bust them both open right away. And you could totally see the difference in color between the Pinot Noir and the Cab, and like, it being
Oh,
like
our
this light. You could,
winemaker killed
huh?
it. He
Oh,
he like,
totally.
what was cool? We didn't talk about this, but he would like bring samples to my grandparents' house with us and be like, "What do you guys think of this?" Like, and we'd all just give our feedback, and he took our feedback and he made the wine that we all collectively are like, "This is like what we considered to be great." And I would say Eric, like, he's very quiet, like he's more reserved, and he's a family man himself. He's like my grandpa to a T, like always working hard for the family. It's two beautiful boys, and he put his love into this with his dad because he also helps with winemaking. So I'm super impressed with this cab, and
Oh, it's so good.
yeah.
And the fun thing is for this cab, it's coming from his best friend's vineyard.
Oh, really? And
Up
at
on
the
that list.
very end, you taste a little bit of like pepperiness at the very, like it just kind of coats, but not too much. Sometimes it can be very like overpowering and everything. It's just like at the end when you're,
Just enough pepper, not too
yes,
peppery.
yes, just enough without being overwhelming. I always feel like, because I'm still learning more about wine, right? There's always stuff to learn. Like you never stop learning. So
No.
I'm like, oh my gosh, in my taste, I know it's very subjective, but then when I'm like, oh, I'm just tasty with people are like, yeah, that's what we went for. And I was like, oh, I am learning.
Yes, and you learn by doing, right? So
I try
that's
and smell like you know, like every whatchamacallit herb, every whatever, like try and smell because it just ends up getting locked away somewhere anyways. And then I still have my wine wheel, right? So I
Oh,
can look
nice.
at that. Yeah, oh
Yeah.
yeah, I use that all the time
oh
because I
yeah.
want to make sure, like, I'm trying to learn. And I think that's one thing when it comes to our community. When I did not grow up with wine, I grew up here in San Diego, and our family parties were beer and tequila and like, that's what it was. It was never wine. Growing up, like my first my first experience with quote unquote wine, and you'll understand when I say quote unquote wine, was Boone's Farm Strawberry Hill.
Okay.
Whoa, it was like a strawberry one? Because that sounds kind of good.
Strawberry wine. But
That's
it's
kind of
like,
interesting.
yeah, I was 15 at a quinceañera. And, yeah, it's what a 15-year-old could drink. That's how sweet it is. It's just all sugar,
Gotcha.
Yeah.
right?
So
So,
it's fun when you're younger. When you get older,
yes.
you're like, oh my gosh, I can't
Oh
do that
my, I
again.
mean, I think about it and I get a stomach ache.
Right.
No, yeah.
And then my mom would have like wine coolers, or she would have the
Yep.
Franzia wine. Like those are my experiences with, like I said, quote unquote wine.
Yeah.
So, I didn't really start drinking wine till, again, I was in my 20s. I don't even know if I don't know if I was past 21. I would assume so. But I was definitely in probably my early 20s when I started drinking it. And it went from like, like a sweeter, uh, like a white zin. It went from like a white zin to
Yeah.
then a white, and then from a white to like a lighter red to and then it's like I built up. I'm like, okay, but I was willing to try, and that's why I always tell people, just try it. If you
Yeah.
don't, you never know unless you try. If you're just like, well, I don't like reds. I'm like, well, try a Beaujolais or try a Pinot Noir. Those tend to be a little bit lighter and easier for people to start like dipping their toe into wine. If
It's
you
always
like,
the best when your friends like try a Beaujolais for the first time. They're like, oh my God, thank you. I really like this. Like, I would have never known. Right. And
yeah,
it's so fun to see that too. So that's
yeah.
great.
When I tell people that, I'm like, it's even lighter than Pinot Noir. That's at least what I think. I'm like, it's really, really light. If you just want to tiptoe into it, try that. And usually people are like, oh, okay, I can handle it. And if they are willing to like, okay, now try a Pinot Noir. It's a little bit more, and just don't go straight to like a Zin or a Cab, because
Yeah. You
then
don't want
you
to go
might
big
be.
and bold right away.
Oh yeah.
Got to train your palate.
Yes, actually, I did have somebody on here who said like their very first time they tried wine, I think it was like a Cabernet or something. And I was like, Girl, you just jumped into it. Go
Like
your
an
first taste of
IPA,
wine.
going
Yes.
right to it. Just get a couple sips.
Yes, exactly, exactly. So
Yeah.
what do you guys think when you're approaching, or when you're like when your cousin is coming to you and saying try this, what are the things that you guys are looking for, or what made you collectively go, this is it? Because that's really hard to please all of those palates, right? Everybody in the family, and saying, or somebody saying, no, this is too much this, oh, this is too much that, but for everybody to be like, damn, this is exactly what we're looking for. Do you know it when you just, do you know it ahead of time? Like, do you have ideas, or do you just know it when you taste it?
I would say it's both, a little bit of both. Our goal is to, in our head, is to get to one, you know, create this perfect wine in our head, right? But then when we actually try it, it's like, okay, it has this, but it might be missing this piece. And so it's just it's making that wine go in the direction that you want it to go. Um, so yeah, and that's the hard thing, right? Wine, you're not always going to satisfy every palate.
Right.
Everyone likes their wine differently. And that's one thing, that we talked about from the beginning. It's as a family, it's like wine is an art. There's so many, you can say, different winemakers source fruit from that same vineyard, but every wine that you try from that vineyard is going to be different in its own way. And
Yeah.
that's one thing that makes wine so special. It's not a copy and paste. And that's why there's so many wineries. That's why there's so many labels, because everyone is doing something a little bit different.
Yeah.
But our goal was to, have a wine that, as I said earlier, a wine that people can get into when we released it. And it's a wine that has a middle, a beginning, a middle, and an end. It's not just a wine that's either you're going to punch you at the beginning and it's just falls off the palate, or it just doesn't get you anywhere until the end. We wanted something that coats your whole palate and stays on that finish. That finish just continues until your next sip.
And it's dry, but it's not like super tannic. It's not super like, and I don't mind super tannic wines. I really don't. But it's like, it's definitely coats your tongue. Like I said, it has that peppery finish, but it is dry without like, but without like drying out your mouth. Like you still want more.
Silky too, right? Like, which I like you said, it's not too tannic. So it kind of has like a nice like silkiness to it, like good acidity. So that's also something that we wanted to carry into this cab. When we were doing the testing, we all kind of like agreed between option A and B. We all like seemed to be kind of in the same boat. And I think it's just because we all grew up drinking the wines that were offered at the table, which were very good, wines. And so I think our family has a certain like taste that we wanted to make our own, but kind of though pick a little bit from our favorites over the years. So at least
What
that's
is
my
your,
process.
yeah, no,
That's
I
my process.
agree. Yeah, and Noel, when you're saying it does have a beginning, middle, and end, it really does. And you can
Yeah.
almost taste, like you could taste the change
Yeah.
as you're drinking it. It's very cool. Like I don't know if I paid that much attention before. I mean, I feel like I have to some degree, but like this is very like, I think this is probably one of the most uh the cabs that I think I could truly, really, really taste that beginning, middle, and end. I've tasted it in other ones, but it's very distinct. This, I'll say that. It's very distinct with this cab.
Definitely, and that was our goal. There are wines, I mean, cabs, because that's what we're talking about, that punches you right in the beginning and it's just like, whoa, and then it just like falls off, right? Or there's some that like just don't do anything at the beginning, and then at the end it's like just a punch.
Yeah.
So we wanted something that gets you a little bit at the beginning and then just coats its way all the way through. Like I took a sip a few minutes ago and I still feel that acidity and it's still coating my palate.
Yes. I know. I'm like, my mouth is watering because I want more.
A good thing.
Yes, no, that's definitely a good thing. So I'm super excited that you guys are coming out with a Sauvignon Blanc in August, you said?
In August, yes.
In August. Okay, well, I'm gonna have to try that. Just so you
Yeah.
know.
We get
I
you
want to
some.
I want to try it in August. Um, what is the thing like when you're looking at a Sauvignon Blanc? Obviously, like I gave my opinion, and what you're gonna be like, well, yeah, it's very grapefruit forward, and I'll still try it. I'll still try it for you if it is. But no, um, what are the things that you guys look for in something like a Sauvignon Blanc? Because it's still something, it's probably bottled at this point, I would imagine, or about to be bottled, or like what were the things that you're looking for in regards to a Sauvignon Blanc? Because obviously that's very different than a Pinot and a Cab.
Totally. We felt as a family that we needed a wine that, a white wine, because not everyone enjoys red wine. And, we're in summertime and not everyone wants to be drinking Cab. Some people do enjoy Pinots and some people do enjoy Cabs during summer, but a lot of people do enjoy that white wine because you can drink it anytime during the summer. It is a very different style of Sauvignon Blanc. So the fruit is coming from Howell Mountain and Oakville, which are two, very special sub AVAs here in the Napa Valley. And it's not a stainless steel aged Sauvignon Blanc. It is an oak aged Sauvignon Blanc. So it does have that structure. It's not a Sauvignon Blanc that is it's not super light that, when you take a sip and it's like, okay, it just fell off my palate. It's a Sauvignon Blanc that has structure. It has that ageability, and it's one that's going to just coat your palate, just like these reds. It coats your palate and it stays on your palate until your next sip. As there's a lot of Sauvignon Blanc, those the stainless steel, which are great, everyone enjoys those, but the finish doesn't always stay until your next sip. So our goal was to have one that has structure, because that's how our family loves wine that has that body, has that structure. But we also felt it was a great opportunity because who wouldn't want Sauvignon Blanc with fruit coming from Howell Mountain in Oakville?
Wow. Okay, that sounds really interesting when you said, well, like as soon as you said it wasn't steel barrel, I was like, wait, I don't know if you saw my head. I was like,
Yeah. So it's going to be exciting because it is a barrel fermented and aged
What
Sauvignon.
kind of barrel are you guys using for that?
It's going to be French oak, and we are using pungents. So pungents are going to be barrels that are, larger than your traditional 59, 60-gallon barrels.
How big is that? How big is a pungent?
It's roughly about 120 gallons.
Okay. Wow, that sounds so exciting. That's so cool. I can't now I'm really excited to try it.
You're the exclusive because we just found out like a couple days ago that this was gonna happen. So that's why I was reacting to Noel, because I didn't even know those details myself. All I know is Napa Valley Sauvignon Blanc. So I'm excited too.
This won't go into the podcast, but we just made it official yesterday.
Oh, that's awesome. That's so exciting. Um, I'm now I just totally got off track of what I wanted because I'm like, oh, I can't wait to try it. Oh, actually, I do know what I want to ask. So what foods, like for your guys' wines, outside of like when you're talking about like foods that we have often, right, within our culture, what are your favorite things to pair your Pinot Noir and your Cabs with?
Do you want to go?
Well, I recently had like a carne asada taco thing, and it tasted really good with the cab. I just personally hadn't tried that before. So I really enjoyed it with that. Pinot, I haven't really explored much yet. Cuisine. So I'll let Noel
I was
take
gonna
it from
say I
there.
typically drink these wines by itself.
Okay.
There we go, right? Okay,
So
like, can we
me and
say
my
that?
husband, we call like the wines you can just that are very easy to drink by yourself. We call them popcorn wines.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
I love having wine and popcorn. This is pre-scandal. Okay, Kerry Washington got that from me. No. So that's what we call pop. We don't even call it table wine. We call it popcorn wine because they're very, very easy to drink. You can drink them by themselves and you can drink it with like something like popcorn and watching a movie and whatever. So that's what I would like the Pinot Noir. That was so light and bright and like you said, very floral. That was on it. That's probably one of the best Pinot Noirs I've had in a while. I'm not gonna lie. It's really good.
Trying to think
And
of
I've had good ones.
our grandma does a chicken, like a barbacoa type of chicken, and the Pinot just pairs very well with it. And it's not like your traditional barbacoa. It's just she brings it back from our hometown, so it's very different. Every town, every state in Mexico has their own version of each food. So that's our hometown's like style of barbacoa chicken, and the Pinot just pairs perfectly with it.
I
So
think
I
too,
will tell you. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry, Jackie.
I was just thinking too with the cab, how it has that spice kind of palate towards the end. I feel like if we have anything with salsa or anything like spicy, it would complement well. So now I'm gonna have to test that.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to make something like, well, tonight I'm going to have pizza, but this weekend, or
Yeah.
I don't know, I'm gonna have to figure out when I'm gonna cook because I don't think we're going to my mom's on Sunday for Mother's Day, and my husband, I still am trying to transition. I'm calling him my fiance to my husband. But he works at an Italian, he's the director of beverage for a couple of Italian restaurants here in Little Italy here in San Diego. So
Oh, that's awesome.
yeah. So I'm gonna be like, bring this, and I'm gonna have to just do a lot of different taste tests. In fact, we haven't gotten our honeymoon yet, but what we're gonna do is get wines from different countries that we want to go to and blind taste them to see which our favorite one, and wherever our favorite bottle of wine is, that's where we're gonna go.
That's awesome.
That's such a great idea. Wait,
Yeah.
I would do that for my next venture. Like, okay, where are we going? That's
Right?
Really cool.
idea.
It was his idea. I have to give him credit for that. Like, that was his idea. I don't want to take credit. I mean, I do want to take credit, but I want
You're part of it. Take
yeah,
a little credit.
yeah, exactly. Well, he knows how much. I mean, obviously, he knows what I do. He enjoys wine. He's worked in a lot of very high end places, so he's had to learn a lot about wine as well. So it goes well.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys are familiar with Seisoles wine.
I am. I personally.
He's out of Chris. So Chris, he's a friend of the podcast. He actually came to the wedding and he, provided wine and stuff. But his he does a lot of blends. He does now have a cab out, but he's out of Lodi. And his white wine is probably one of my favorites, his white blend. And he does a Grenache Blanc and an Albarino white blend.
Oh,
two of my favorites.
Nice.
It is so, so good. When I tried it, I was like, oh my gosh. Like, especially when it gets close to summer, I'm like, I need more wine. But that's how I feel with the Pinot. Like, I'm like, I need more Pinot.
Good. I'm not gonna lie, a lot of people really enjoy it too, and I'm just so happy to hear it because I love it too. Like I just think it really is like what's it like an underdog. Like, you know what I mean? For what we're charging is like $45, I think.
$45 a month.
But really it should be going for higher just based on like other well-known brands around there. But it truly is like very good quality. So I'm happy that you like get the same feeling from it.
Well, let me just share, with the audience and with our, chismosos, chismosas here. It's so important. We were talking about, supporting our community and everything. And oftentimes some people are like, oh, I won't pay for this much for a wine, or they go to the grocery store and everything. But I think people just sometimes, when you get it, right? Because you're not just paying for the wine, you're paying to really help uplift our community, which is so unbelievably important right now. When you're buying these wines, you're, a majority, actually, I mean, all of these Latino wine brands, you're paying to help support a family business, and a small business. And that's not always easy. And you can't, to get the quality that you want, you can't charge, $10 a bottle. This is worth way more than $10 a bottle anyways. But, I think at least the audience that we tend to cater to with our, tend to understand that. I think there's been sometimes a disconnect, and I don't know if you guys have seen it in regards to like the Gen Z not maybe drinking as much, or going towards like the high noons and those
Seltzers.
types of the seltzers and everything like that. I don't know if this is something that you guys have looked at or anything like that, but how do you think, when you're looking at building your business, how are you looking that like forward as that Gen Z gets older? And is that something that's concerning for you or not?
I'll start.
So I personally am not worried or stressed about it. And the reason I say that is because The wine industry has definitely changed. We can say years ago, the wine, here in Napa Valley, it was directed more towards the collectors, towards the people that were going to sit on that bottle and age. Now people are wanting to buy wine so they can drink it within the 30 minutes that they just bought it in. They're drinking it very soon. And with the style of winemaking that we're doing with, these wines, they were just released in January. So they are very young, but they are very approachable. We've shared it with a lot of people within our industry, friends that I have within the industry, and they were very wowed about these wines. They're like, these are great wines. And it's surprisingly, a lot of them ended up buying these wines when we hosted a little bit of an industry gathering, which was very special because a lot of them are friends or, we've built these relationships with other people within the industry here in Napa. And they were very blown away by the quality and the taste of these wines that they secured wines themselves to take home. And, that makes us feel extra special and, gives us that drive to let's keep going because we can do this. We're just getting started.
Yes. Jackie, how do you feel?
Yeah, I would say that, I mean, a younger audience, they typically don't have as much money. So I think what we're doing is creating like more opportunity for people to engage with us with a Sauvignon Blanc. It's not going to cost probably $45. It's going to be a little bit more affordable. I think we're like taking all these things into consideration. Yeah, and I think just like with the marketing, when it comes to doing like fun events, I think that's more like a millennial thing actually than Gen Z. But what we're doing is we're trying to create just more outside of a traditional approach of like, come drink our wines. We're here and there. Like we're trying to make it fun. And besides, drinking really good wine, we're also creating like things to do with your friends. And I think that's what we're going to continue to do as we grow and try to attract new audiences is really like building that community aspect, which I think a lot of younger generations care about more than older generations when it comes to purchasing. So I just would say stay tuned for all the fun and exciting things that we're going to be coming down the pipeline.
That's right. So as of right now, do you guys have a wine club or is that something that you guys are going to be doing in the future?
At the moment, we don't have a wine club. Just the reason is this cab and this Pinot is our first release. Once we, start releasing our second vintage and our third vintage, we will definitely look into that direction. Our goal is to have a tasting room one day and also start up a wine club. But at the moment, with the production that we have, because within both of these SKUs, we did 145 cases of each. Which is not a lot. So we also want to make sure, we are hosting events every once in a while where we can share these wines with people. And we have been working to get them into restaurants, which we have been able to do so successfully, which is great.
So when you open your tasting room, I want to be there opening day. I'm
All right,
telling you
make sure
now.
you're there.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm telling you right now, I want to be there
Yeah.
opening day for your tasting room because I know it's gonna happen.
Yeah, definitely.
So
Thank you.
yeah, girl. Yes, I'm like, I love these wines. Like, I'm a supporter of our people, anyways, right? I'm like, I don't think there's been very many wines that there might have been necessarily my taste, but I still appreciate it. Maybe it's a little bit too sweet, or maybe it's a little bit too buttery. I'm not a buttery like the Chardonnays, the buttery Chardonnays. They're too heavy for my palate. I'm not. I'm like they're too heavy for my palate. But give me a cab.
Yeah.
That's different.
Yeah, but I'm more of like the like steel aged Chardonnays, like because of the brightness and the citrus that comes from it. That's where I tend to be drawn to. But I always tell people just because like wine is again so subjective, right? I might not like a Sauvignon Blanc from New Zealand because I don't like grapefruit. But if you like grapefruit, go for it. Like, who cares what I say? Like, don't list like, if you're willing to try it, cool. You never know what you're gonna like unless you try it, like I said before. Um, how can people order your wines?
They can go to our website, directly at 1467sellers.com or send us a message on Instagram and we can, we can help do that. Right now, it is kind of costly to ship if you do that option. So we've been kind of having like events where you can pick up or we'll drop it off if you're in the, like the Napa radius. But yeah, right now that's kind of our
Yeah, if
method.
you are interested in, purchasing wine and it does come down to shipping, feel free to shoot us an email and we can definitely stay in touch and go from there and see how we can get you this wine.
Yeah. And let them know that the wine and you heard it from the wine and cheese man.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I had such a good time with you guys.
No,
Like
thank you.
time always flies by, especially when you're drinking wine, right?
Definitely.
Yes. I know. I was looking at the time. I'm like, wait, that just was so fun. It went by so quickly.
I know. It always does. And it's so funny. Like when I sometimes just interview men,
Yeah.
they're always like, oh my gosh, I thought this was gonna be I thought this was gonna feel a lot longer. Because women, we can be like, oh, cheese me out all day and whatever. But
Time flies.
sometimes the guys are like, oh wow, that did go fast. I'm like, that's my job, right? To make you just want to talk.
Exactly. Will you be here for a Lawn Law Festival that's in Napa?
I'm trying. There's just so many things that are going on in Napa. I need to figure out like what things to go to because there's the Estilo Latinx fashion show that's coming up. There's the Mava event that's coming up, the La Gran Cosecha that's coming up, which actually I was the MC for last year. And then
awesome.
yeah, and then I really want to go for I've never been for Harvest. I really want to go for Harvest. So there's just like and then obviously you have like the festival that's coming up. So I'm trying to figure out, like, my husband's like, go. I don't just
Yeah. Well, let us know. We can host you at the tasting room that we're at and just, I guess that's kind of the message if you want to.
Yeah, for sure. I just need to figure out you can usually find from San Diego some pretty affordable flights. It's just like, okay, where am I going to stay? Am I going to get a hotel or like some places are like, no, we'll host you. So I just need to figure out like what's happening where to figure out how, like, what that situation is. So, but no, I will definitely be there this year at some point. I have to. There's really no choice in the matter. I have to be there. But I want to make sure if there's anything that I haven't asked or if there's anything that you want to add, please do so.
What do you think?
I feel like we covered a lot. No, I mean, just you've already directed people to our website. We got the little Instagram shout out to stay up to date with the news.
I'll make sure to put all of that in the show notes as well as social media.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe a little bit behind the door. So our label is
that's right.
1467 Cellars. So that, as we mentioned, is our grandparents' home address, but the door is the door that's been there since day one. It's still there. It's the home that has brought our whole family, that brings our family very close. That's where wine is always consumed. So it's the home, it's the door where anyone is welcome.
I love that. And actually, I think because we got connected through Instagram.
Correct.
And I don't remember if somebody had posted something and I followed you guys, or if you guys had saw something I posted and you followed me. But as soon as I saw another Latino owned winery, I'm like, oh.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been a long time in the works, but glad that we finally have our wine out.
Yeah, well, let me just tell you, it's wonderful. It's a wonderful wine. So however long it took, it was worth it.
Definitely. Thank you.
Yes, this was so great. Mi gente, please make sure to follow 1467 Cellars. All of the information is going to be in the show notes. And when we post on social media, I'll be there. Order your wine, support our community. I know that you guys are freaking like monsters at doing that and like really just pushing for our community. So let's continue to do so. And until next time.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Hola, mi gente. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Wine and Chisme podcast. If you would like to hear more wine and more chisme, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Saludos.